everyone. This is The Crime Cafe, your podcasting source of great crime, suspense, and thriller writing. I'm your host, Debbie Mack. Before I bring on my guest, I'll just remind you that The Crime Cafe has 2 ebooks for sale, the 9-book box set and the short story anthology. You can find the buy links for both on my website, debbiemack.com, under the Crime Cafe link. You can also get a free copy of either book if you become a Patreon supporter. You'll get that and much more if you support the podcast on Patreon, along with our eternal gratitude for doing so. I would also like to recommend Stitcher Premium if you're a fan of podcasts. If you like true crime or crime fiction, there are loads of podcasts out there for you. And with Stitcher Premium, you can listen to the exclusive archives from Criminology or bonus episodes from True Crime Garage. You can also listen ad-free to episodes of your favorite podcasts. I've subscribed, and for only $4.99 a month, it's nice to have ad-free entertainment. Just go to Stitcher.com/premium and use the promo code CRIMECAFE, that's one word, all caps, to try it out. Absolutely free for a month. Hi, everyone. Our guest today started his writing career as a police reporter, and apparently one of his stories became an important part of a big, lengthy murder trial. He's also done advertising and marketing and worked as a copywriter for Knott's Berry Farm. That's a familiar name to me because I used to live in California. Not only has he written and published 3 mysteries and a book of flash crime fiction called Cops, Crooks, and Other Stories in 100 Words, but he's written business books, including Do-It-Yourself Direct Marketing, which was named Best Business Book of the Year by Library Journal and made the Book of the Month Club. His articles have appeared in major newspapers, including my own favorite, The Washington Post, and his latest novel is The Marijuana Murders. His name is Mark Bacon. Hi, Mark. Thanks again for being so patient as to wait long enough for this interview.
Thanks for having me. Well, the last few months I've just been hanging around like everybody else.
Oh yeah, that's what we're all doing. We're all hanging around and Zooming.
Yeah.
A lot of Zooming going on. Let's see. I love your shirt, by the way. That's great.
Thanks.
Very, very festive looking. And you have 3 books out so far in the Nostalgia City Mysteries. Is that correct?
That's right. I'm working on number 4.
And that's for the series also?
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, you said the inspiration for the series came from working at Knott's Berry Farm. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Early in my career, I was a copywriter for Knott's Berry Farm. And I wrote ads and commercials, but occasionally I would get a chance to go out into the park and work on special events. And I got to meet some of the costumed employees who entertained the guests, people who wore those giant heads and people who were gunslingers and so on. And so I got to know a little bit about what it's like behind the scenes at a theme park. And I always thought that it might be an interesting place to hold a murder mystery or to set a murder mystery, because a theme park is great during the day, but at night, when everybody's gone, when the rides are stopped, everything is silent, and the only motion is the shadows of the trees. It can be a little scary, and I thought it'd make a great place to kill people.
That's cool. I like that. Let's see. You haven't ever seen the show Playing God in Central Florida, something like that?
No, doesn't ring a bell.
It revolves around a woman who works at the theme park. That's the only reason I asked.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a lot of those in Florida.
Yeah. It's quite an interesting show. It was on Netflix, I think. Anyway, hopefully it'll come back and more will. I don't know if they cancel it or not, but anyway, Be that as it may.
After, as I worked at the theme park years ago, and then when I finally got down to writing murder mysteries, I wanted to do a theme park. But what kind of theme park should I use? The Disney has done so many different kinds, different variations. I didn't want to copy any of that. I wasn't interested in the fast roller coaster kind of theme parks. And I live in Reno, Nevada, and the biggest event every year here is called Hot August Nights. And it's a celebration of rock and roll and old cars. And one day I'm driving down the street and I'm listening to rock and roll on the radio, and sitting next to me at a traffic light is like a 72 Mustang. And it just all of a sudden occurred to me, why don't I do a theme park that is a recreation of a town from the 1970s? And so that's what it is. That's what Nostalgia City is. It's like taking a trip back in time.
Very interesting. Um, Now, I'm trying to remember, were modern conveniences in this theme park? Like, did they have Wi-Fi and things like that? I can't remember now.
Oh, in Nostalgia City?
Yeah,
Well, no, because they tried to keep it as accurate to the 70s as possible. Now, guests coming in obviously have cell phones with them, but they're discouraged from using them. And all park employees, cell phones, pagers, computers, anything that didn't exist in the 70s is verboten.
but an interesting experience that would be for most millennials, I think.
Right.
um, Now, as I understand it, each of your books was based on real life events. Can you talk about each of those events and how they
Sure,
affected the book?
I'd be glad to. I don't know how I got onto the idea of basing it on real events, but um, I think it adds to the authenticity, the realism of a story, if there's some kernel of something from the news in it, and I've done that with all the books. Um, the second book I did is called Desert Kill Switch, and it is based on something that's really amazing that I sort of stumbled on once reading a newspaper article, and I had a hard time believing that it was true. I did some more research and I found out it was true. And the situation is that a number of car dealers in the country, when they finance a used car or a new car, particularly for people who are low income and they have to pay a high interest rate, the dealers install a GPS tracking device and a kill switch on the engine, so that if they miss a payment, sometimes by as few as a few days, depending on the dealer, they flip the switch and the car is dead. You're not going anywhere until you make your payment. And if you don't make your payment, the dealer knows where you are because of the GPS, and he just comes down and takes your car. It um, uh, bypasses the old repo man. Don't even need the
Yeah,
repo man. Know where the car is. And this is real. Now, certainly not all dealers do this. It's a percentage of them. But I did a lot of research on it, and it is, in fact, what's going on in the industry. There have been some lawsuits on it. A woman in Las Vegas claimed that the dealer threw the switch when she was on the freeway, and she narrowly avoided an accident. So I started reading all this and I thought, wow, is this a great idea to work into a murder mystery? And so I did, and that's where the name Desert Kill Switch came from.
that's
Um,
rather
my,
fantastic.
my third book, the most latest one, is called The Marijuana Murders, and that is based in large part on two ballot campaigns that were conducted in Arizona to legalize marijuana. And there were two camps. One was the corporate camp that wanted to essentially set up corporate stores all over the state and sell marijuana in a very regimented way. The other camp wanted to make it more like mom and pop stores, like a mom and pop liquor store, only a mom and pop pot store. Um, and so they both had propositions on the ballot, and they were both competing with each other. And there was a good bit of animosity between the two camps, The one camp was more the sort of laid back, people called them the stoner proposition. And then there was the corporate one that was all interested in the bottom line. And that sounded ready-made to me
Hmm.
for a murder mystery. And so I did, and I drew a lot of information that I put in the book directly from what the campaigns were saying about each other. Um, Strangely enough, neither campaign was successful,
Hmm.
and because they were going
Working
after
at
each
cross
other.
purposes.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, I built in some murders that didn't really happen, but that's really what it was all about. And I also went back a little bit into the history of marijuana prohibition and how it got started. And I talked about, well, I had one of my protagonists talk about um, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, or drugs, I should say, back in the 1930s. They put out these movies that scared people about marijuana. They told everybody um, that marijuana made white women want to have sex with black men.
Yes.
It was a racial thing. It was really a horrible mess. And I just barely touch on that. The main focus is the campaign that actually happened in Arizona, and it's in Arizona because that's where my theme park is. Nostalgia City is located somewhere just north of Phoenix.
Seems like a good location for it somehow.
It is for several reasons. One, I wanted a place where you'd have a lot of open, inexpensive land because Nostalgia City is like the most elaborate theme park in the country, and it would have to have some place that was open and you could build it. Number two, decent weather year round. And number three, I placed it near a recreated portion of Route 66 that traveled all the way across northern Arizona. So it tied into the theme.
That's great. That makes a lot of sense. Let's see. Your time as a reporter on the police beat, does that work its way into your writing as well,
It
in terms
does.
of your knowledge from that?
It does. In several different ways. One is getting to know policemen and how they think. One is the routine of police work. I went to the police department every single day and went through the files and talked to the cops, and a lot of it just becomes so routine, um, and sort of soul numbing in a way, depending on the individual, of course. But so much of it is just routine work that doesn't yield anything. A lot of time spent. And so I built that into my main character, one of my two main characters. I have two protagonists. One is Lyle Deming, who is an ex-cop. The other one is Kate Sorensen, who is the public relations manager of the theme park. And they eventually get together in the first book because a lot of things happen that draw them both into it.
Right. Yeah. Now, why did you decide to make him an ex-cop rather than a cop?
Um, because he got fed up with police work. And he's um, a wounded individual, stressed out completely. He has general anxiety disorder, for which he uh, takes medication and sometimes drinks, sometimes at the same time, which is not a good idea. And I made him an ex-cop because he escaped to Nostalgia City and became a cab driver, thinking that this would be about as far removed from doing murders as you could get. Driving a cab in a theme park. He's driving a cab. You don't think of cabs being in theme parks, but Nostalgia City is multiple square miles. And so they really have, it's really a recreation of a whole town. So they have cabs and they have buses and various forms of transportation. So Lyle got the cab to escape as much as possible and just to be laid back. Unfortunately, that's not exactly how it worked out for
I love the fact that he's escaped to a place that takes him back in time, essentially.
Right.
There's a kind of feeling, of escaping back to the past in a way.
That that's exactly it. And the music from the past and and the food and the cars and everything about that time is an escape.
Exactly, yeah.
And he has to
Um,
hide his cell phone
he hides his cell phone.
because he's not allowed to use it in the park.
Exactly. But he does use it, I assume, secretly.
When he's outside the park and sometimes secretly if he has to, but for the most part, he gets along without it. And from a mystery writer standpoint, that's kind of handy because so much of crime fiction these days is based on the ultra tech methods of investigation and catching criminals. And I kind of give Lyle a little more of the old fashioned shoe leather and interviewing people rather than checking DNAs and looking at CCTV.
I'm with you on that. I love the old fashioned, people going out and actually confronting other people, actually talking to them face to face, that sort of thing. And I think
Right.
technology can fall down in many ways, so that potential is there even today. But I like that the female public relations person was also a college basketball star. What prompted you to make her the college basketball star?
What prompted me to make her that?
Yeah, why did you
Um,
put that in her backstory?
well, I got the inspiration from my younger daughter, who was a college basketball star.
Cool.
And I got to know all the girls on her team and saw the games and saw the pressure they were under. She was a Division I point guard. She's not tall like Kate Sorensen. She's only 5'6", but she was an incredible shooter, and she ran the team as point guard. And it was very high pressure situation when they're in tournaments and they're down by 1 point, and she has the ball. And so I gave Kate that background so that she can deal with stress in a whole different way than Lyle deals with stress. He deals with it by sort of freaking out. Although he exercises, he never has gotten around to meditating, which Kate has told him he should do. But Kate deals with stress that she learned how to on the basketball court, and that she turned the stress into positive energy that she needed to deal with the other team, deal with scoring, deal with the refs. So she uses that in a lot of the stressful situations in the novels, where she can kind of be the calming influence.
Mm-hmm.
And I made her 6'3" because I thought it would be a cool idea.
I think it's cool. Um, does any kind of romantic tension develop between them, or do they remain just friends?
Slowly,
Slowly.
slowly. I, the first book was they just met and just kind of exploring relationships. The second book, a little bit closer. The third book, and now I'm actually in the fourth book. They don't get to see much of each other because he's in Florida and she's in Arizona, but it is developing, yes.
That's very interesting because
But
I
I don't
detected
want it to
just,
go too
yeah,
fast.
you don't want to go too fast. Exactly. Keep that romantic tension in there. Um, let's see. Tell us about the one you're working on now. It involves industrial espionage.
It does. I don't know if I'm like a lot of authors, but I don't like to talk too much about work in progress.
That's fine.
Part of the reason that I'm a writer is I get things in my head and I get rid of them by sitting at the computer and writing it all down. But I will tell you a little bit about my research for this book.
That would be nice.
Again, it's based on some real news events, real facts. The Chinese government has for many years been stealing our secrets. And if you read the FBI files, and they're voluminous, you find out how many things have been stolen, and what their techniques are. And their techniques are really kind of intriguing. Um, they would like to steal things, of course, and sometimes pay for them and risk getting arrested, and they have been. But they have a huge infrastructure, the People's Republic of China does, to absorb American technology without stealing it by essentially just asking for it. A couple of things. One, there are over 300,000 Chinese students in the United States right now, most of them in technological fields, getting masters and doctorates, and they learn all this information and they go home and they use it. One of the other ways they use is they set up symposiums and conferences and all types of meetings in China. They invite American professors and scientists who are in leading edge technology to come over, and they give them awards and they talk to them about what great work they're doing. And the professors and the scientists are so proud of what they're doing, they give talks on it and they
Mm-hmm.
explain everything that their technology is. And that's exactly what the Chinese would like to do. Um, so that's part of this book. It's dealing with um, people stealing theme park secrets.
Mm.
And China is the largest theme park market in the world, more so than the United States. There are literally hundreds of theme parks in China, some very small, some gigantic. And a lot of theme park ride manufacturers sell to the United States. They also sell to China. They also sell around the world, Europe, Asia, Africa, everywhere. It's a huge market. It's billions and billions of dollars. So every theme park wants to have the latest technology. So when you take a ride, it really just takes you away from it all. It just is much more so than seeing a fantastic movie. It's just a complete experience. And the technology is advancing rapidly with things like extended reality, artificial intelligence, and so that's what the book's all about.
That sounds mind-blowing. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to say I love the concept of the 100-word story. How long
Oh,
did it take you to put that book together? Did you just write them individually and then just put them all together, or did you do it deliberately?
it started with a friend of mine who was teaching a writing class, and he told me that he had this exercise for his students that they had to write a complete story in only 100 words. Not 99 words, not 101 words, but 100 words.
Huh.
So I thought, whoa, okay, I'll give it a try. So I just played around with it. And I had no idea there was actually a flash fiction genre at the time. I just thought this was kind of a fun thing to do. So I started doing, and I wrote a few that I liked, and then I started doing more, and I submitted some to some literary magazines that got published. I got more interested in it, and finally I realized I had enough to put them in a book, so I did.
That's
It
fantastic.
took me about a day each story. It seems like a lot of time for just 100 words,
Not
but
really.
uh,
For a good story?
my my stories usually are like 250 words, and then it's a matter of getting them down, and they're all exactly 100 words. And most of them are crime stories, and they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They have a protagonist, they have a challenge. I try to pack that all in 100 words, and it's a huge challenge, and I really love that. And I did this before I started doing the mystery novels. Well, sort of. I had done some practice novels before, but I learned a lot doing flash fiction. I learned how to say a lot in a few words. I learned how to say things that make the reader think without telling them something right out. And I think it's a great discipline. And it's a whole genre. There are books, there are many, many, many publications. And many people have their own definition of what flash fiction is too. Hemingway wrote flash fiction. Um, uh, Margaret Atwater,
Atwood?
Margaret Atwood writes
Hmm.
flash fiction. Um, and there's 100-word flash fiction. There's 200-word flash fiction. There's 500-word flash fiction. And one of the shortest flash fictions is attributed to Hemingway. It's a 6-word one. Do you
The
know that?
baby shoes, yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's now I have to read this book. I'm really intrigued. I want to see this. Now I want to try to take it up. See if I can
It's a
do it
lot of fun,
myself.
actually.
Yeah, what an interesting challenge.
The
It's a
way I
great
did it is,
challenge.
every morning I take my dog for a walk. Usually takes about an hour, and by the time I got home, I had an idea for a story, so I sat down and worked on it.
That's fantastic. I love it. Um, what writers are you most inspired by? Who most inspires your and informs your writing?
I knew you were going to ask me that. Um, well, I am equally a fan of contemporary mystery crime writers, and possibly more a fan of the classics, the classic noir writers, people like Cornell Woolrich, Dorothy B. Hughes, um, Ross MacDonald is one of my favorites.
I love
Um,
him.
Obviously, Dashiell Hammett
Hmm.
and Raymond Chandler, and there's a bunch of others from that period. I've read a lot of that period. I kind of go back and forth between contemporary stuff and the classic period. Um, and I find that a little bit of that classic stuff has gotten into my writing unintentionally. I'm in a critique group and we exchange chapters and critique each other. And one of the critique group members said, "This sounds just like an old fashioned gumshoe story." And I didn't intend to do it that way. So now I have to figure out exactly what to do with
Well, I don't think it sounds so bad.
it.
I mean, if I were going to read it, I think I would enjoy it, but that's just me.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that kind of style. Um, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about before we finish up?
Let's see. Oh, did you want to talk about Detour?
Oh, sure. Yeah. My gosh, Detour. The movie that I couldn't stand the first time I saw it, but came to appreciate better the next time I saw it. Basically, the guy just strikes me as a loser who is sort of sleepwalking through life and things happen. He doesn't think about the results of his actions at all and kind of drifts from one situation to the next until he finally ends up screwed. That's kind of the way it seemed to me. How about you?
Very depressing, very dark.
Yes.
Um, and this is now 1945, 46
40, yeah, it could have been right about in there. Yeah, 45,
in that
46,
period.
I think.
And exceptionally low budget,
Oh, yeah.
to the point that they had a scene that was supposed to be in New York City, but it was filmed in Hollywood with a fog machine,
Yeah.
and a very tight
It's pretty obvious,
camera, so
too.
you couldn't see where they were.
Hmm.
Um,
Clever, though.
and no name actors at all in the movie.
Hmm.
But it's become a cult film for reasons that sort of escape me. Um, it's about a guy who makes every possible decision wrong.
Yes.
You and I were talking about this before we got started here, and one of the other crazy things about it is the last scene with the telephone.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I won't spoil it to anybody that hasn't seen the movie, but it's a unusual way of killing someone.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, well, oh my gosh. That's
However,
not good.
I must say though, in the middle of that movie, there's a twist that caught me completely by surprise because the movie was kind of ho hum up until that time, and all of a sudden, wow, what a great idea! right in the middle.
Was it the
And
thing with the father,
the hitchhiker,
the hitchhiker?
because she knew who he was.
Just
Or,
just the hitchhiker herself. Okay.
well, the fact that he picked up somebody who was tied into
Mm-hmm. To the
the whole
whole,
murder and that. Yeah, I thought
right.
that was really a genius twist, and it went downhill from there.
Yes, it certainly did. Things went downhill fast from there. I think the actress's name was Anne Savage. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, and the
Savage was such
guy was
an
Tom
appropriate
Neal.
name for that
Yeah,
for a
exactly.
person who
Yeah,
would play that character.
yeah,
My
yeah.
God, yeah, Tom Neal. Yeah, he had a sad life. Um, anyway, wow, yeah, Detour. That's quite a movie. But
And it is
anyway,
available on YouTube for free, I think.
yes, it is. It's a public domain movie for anybody who's
Yeah,
interested.
yeah.
Yeah. So, well, all I can say is thanks for being on today, Mark, and
Thanks for having me,
for
Debbie.
talking movies as well as books, because I love both.
Yeah.
And to everyone who's listening, you can get a copy of the transcript of this interview when I put it on my blog. At least I hope so, because transcripts cost money, and I'm short on money all the time. So anyway, we'll see. In any case, in 2 weeks, our next guest will be Andrew Allen. And until then, I hope you have a great 2 weeks and happy reading.